Let's start with a very interesting story from Plogan 56. Give up on my career or move out? Okay, this happened recently, and right now things have calmed down, so it feels right to post this here. So, about 2 weeks ago, my best friend, 22, had called me, 23, asking if he could be my roommate if I find a place. I was looking for a place to stay while going to college. I told him, sure. But why? But he said he'd tell me later. We both meet up a few days later and drive about an hour away from our hometown to move into the place. We spent a few hours setting everything up and unpacking, yet he never said anything about why he wanted to move in with me so suddenly. After we were done, he sat down and explained the situation at home. He and his parents had been at each other's throats recently because he had landed a remote job after our summer internship, and they thought he was wasting his life playing on the computer. His parents have always done factory and physical labor jobs and look down on people who work from their computers because they don't know what real work is. Side note, his dad actually does his auto shop's taxes and other functions from his office, and rarely does any mechanic work himself, so it's kind of hypocritical. He continues to tell me that the day before he called and asked me, they had a huge blowout that resulted in his parents giving him the ultimatum of get a real job or get out. And he says he just went to his room and started packing. I'm guessing, even if I said no, he was moving out regardless. That brings us to him telling the story to me. When he was done, he looked so relieved. I believe the reason he kept so quiet during the move was because he was holding it in and trying not to go crazy. After that, we both spent the rest of the day hanging out to try and keep his mind off of things. Fast forward 3 days later, his parents call him asking why his stuff's not in his room. They were gone a few days to give him time to come to his senses, thinking he'd give up his roughly 4 years of college and internships to get a job as a mechanic starting from scratch. There's nothing wrong with mechanic or people who work labor jobs, but he's been working his butt off these last few years only for them to basically tell him to drop all that and get a job they want him to get. I leave the apartment to give him and them some privacy and take a quick walk. When I get back, 20 minutes later, he's got a wide smile on his face, and he tells me the long and short of it. He apparently left a few details out before, and this time told me the whole story. Roughly around the time we started working at that paid internship, his parents have been charging him rent $350 every month as motivation for him to get a real job, and the blowout they had was about him being able to pay it. Despite not having a real job they had picked out, they said he needed to grow up, get real work experience, and even went as far as accuse him of stealing to get the money, so he had had enough and packed up while they were gone. The phone call they had was him basically telling them he can't go back home because he's not going to change his major current job or career path, so he was staying at the apartment with me. I asked him if he's going to be okay. He assured me that he already explained everything to his other relatives and that they're going to try and talk to his family to see if they can convince them to understand why he wants this job and how computer work is still work. This is going to be our last 2 semesters, and the tuition is already paid off, so we're good ATM, as the only thing we got to worry about is the rent, which we can both cover pretty well. Honestly, I was going to ask him to split this apartment with me regardless, because I found a good apartment complex that had a shuttle to our college and had 2 rooms open, but I'm still glad I could help him. He says he'll eventually start talking to his parents again, but I don't think that'll happen until after they come to their senses, or else they might lose their only son. Update: me and my friend, let's call him Jay, got a visit over the weekend from his aunt telling us how they tried explaining to his parents the situation, but it seems like they're deadest on dying on that hill. She says that if he ever wants to move back to our hometown, he can live with her. Jay didn't seem too surprised by the news, and honestly, neither am I. So he's decided to completely move away from home after college to the city. A software company we've been looking at is stationed. It offers remote work, but the apartments there are surprisingly affordable. His aunt says that's okay, then gave me some overly sweet speech about how I'm a good friend for sticking by him, and even joked that we'd make great lovers, which caused an awkward moment. Anyway, I don't know if I'll update soon, as I need to focus on my studies, but I'll try to keep you guys posted. Update 2. Jay had a final spat with his parents, and I was in my room when it happened. I didn't hear everything, but it seems that Jay's aunt exposed what's going on to even the extended family, and his parents weren't invited to some birthday celebrations. I think the family isn't going to invite them to any family get-together anymore. He had them on speaker with them, screaming, "It's your fault for being so stubborn. You should have just gotten a real job like we told you." And Jay firing back, "You're dumbass the one that don't want to listen? I don't care anymore, don't call me." He hung up the phone and blocked them. He explained to me that most of the family staying away from them now because they've been saying and doing stuff like this for a while now, and Jay getting kicked out was the last straw. My mom told me that even the neighbors know about them now. I may have told my gossiping mom about them, and so people just ain't messing with me anymore. This malicious compliance was flawlessly executed. Jay didn't argue or try to justify himself. He simply packed up and left, turning their ultimatum into reality. By succeeding on his own terms, he proved his point better than words ever could. Perfect. The next story from ACFF. CEO didn't understand what my department did, apparently. Update at the bottom. Thanks so much for the upvotes and silver, gold, and platinum. I really didn't think this would take off like this. Some backstory. I was a general troubleshooter for my company. My job involved a lot of traveling to different clients we support. My area of work is Ontario, Canada, where I am based out of, and some of the nearby states in the United States, New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Pennsylvania. I did most of my traveling by car since my schedule can change quite quickly, and flying can become very expensive. I had one colleague who is technically my subordinate, but we have a very good working relationship and would often handle calls independently of each other, only checking in by phone once a week and in person once a month, when necessary. A little over a year ago, I get an email calling me to the head office in New York City for a meeting with the CEO and the board of directors regarding my job. I check with my colleague, and he got the same email. So we make our travel plans and meet in New York City the following week. We have dinner together the night before our meeting and can't figure out between us what the issue is about. It's rare to get summoned to head office and rarer for things to be so vague. When we go into the meeting the next day, we are informed that the company is dividing our department between the US and Canada, and that there would be a new person to deal with the US clients, and we were to restrict ourselves to Canada. Both my colleague and I were a little shocked at this since neither of us has even heard this was being discussed. I asked who the new person for the US was, and we then learned that it was a new hire that the CEO had taken a special interest in. Trying to be of good spirit, I offered to train the new person. There are many realities of the job that are not in the job description. CEO accepted and then brought in the new hire. In walks a young lady who looks about 23 years old and wears an expression that she knows everything. She sits at the table and immediately makes it very clear that she wants nothing to do with us. CEO, Bob, new hire, Karen, my colleague, Jim. Bob, welcome Karen. We have just informed OP and Jim about the change in structure, and they are willing to give you the support you need to get yourself started. Karen and Bob both look at me. Glad to have you aboard, Karen. I think both Jim and I have a lot of experience to share with you, and we are happy to do so. Perhaps it would be better in a separate meeting so we don't take the board's time. Karen, thank you all. I have a lot of ideas about how I can streamline our department and new policies I can introduce that should save the company a lot of money and expenses. I'm very confused at this point. Karen is speaking as though she is my supervisor, and that is distinctly not what Bob spoke to us about. I can see some of the board members giving strange looks at this as well. Bob, perhaps I misunderstood the new roles here. Would you please clarify? Bob, sure. Karen is the new head of your department, and both you and Jim will answer directly to her. Board member, that isn't what we discussed or approved as a board. We weren't fully convinced of dividing the department, but this is completely against what we discussed. Karen, what did you discuss then? Board member, that your department would be divided between the US and Canada. OP and Jim would remain north of the border, and you would run the US. Karen, that's not what I was told, but I can work with that, as long as these two stay out of my way, indicating me and Jim. Jim and I are both shocked and insulted to be spoken of in this manner. We are both very good at our jobs, and before today have never seen this woman in our lives. Bob, that settles it. OP, effective immediately. You and Jim are to have nothing to do with Karen. Do not interfere with her work at all. You are both to restrict yourselves to working within Canada only. With that, he ended the meeting and left the room with Karen closes behind him. Jim and I sat there stunned for a moment, and some of the board members came up to us to express their shock and sympathies about this. I had enough presence of mind to ask if we would get a written directive of this change and was assured we would. Sure enough, both Jim and I got emails with the new directive from Bob by the end of the day. So, after sending an email to all our US-based clients, advising them of the change, and giving them the contact information of Karen, Jim and I made our way back to Toronto and reorganized ourselves for working within Ontario only. This meant much less traveling for us, so it gave us more room to breathe. Within a week, I was getting complaints from our US-based clients that Karen was not answering emails and missing appointments. I forwarded these emails to Karen and copied the entire board, including Bob. Another week later, I get a phone call from Karen who sounds frantic but will not admit she needs help. She makes pleasant conversation and then asks how I would handle a particular type of situation. I tell her I'm really not interested in discussing work as that might be seen as interfering in her work. Later that evening, I get a call from Jim telling me he had the same conversation with Karen and handled it the same way. By the end of that month, I get a call from Bob asking if I will take over the entire department again. I politely tell him no, since I didn't want to interfere with Karen and her role. For the next 3 months, I'm getting emails and phone calls from US clients, asking if they can have me back as their contact. This confirms an idea that had been in my head. Jim and I had actually grown our client base in Ontario since restricting ourselves here. So I had lunch with Jim one day and asked him if he wanted to go into businesses with me as partners, starting our own consulting firm. We couldn't provide everything our current company provided, but we could provide a high degree of professionalism for our specific field, and it seemed we had a ready-made client base. By the end of the lunch, he was on board, and we started the necessary steps to get ourselves set up. As soon as we were clear, we both submitted our resignations with explanations of why. The next time clients contacted us, we told them we no longer worked for the company. When they asked if we still worked in the field, we told them we had established our own firm and what services we offered. A month later, we had 60% of our US clients on board, and since the former company had no Canadian support at all, we had 80% of the Canadian clients. Within 2 months, we had 80% of the US and 90% of the Canadian clients. In the year since that time, our new company has grown enough that we have hired 7 new consultants. Jim and I find ourselves doing more office work than road work, and a lot of client courting. Our old company has had to stop offering the in-person troubleshooting, what our department did, and Bob was fired by the board. No idea what happened to Karen. Updates. Because of interest expressed in the comments, I made a phone call to one of the board members I remained on friendly terms with. Here are some answers to questions. How did Karen get the job? Apparently, Bob had set up a business school scholarship out of his own money, which had put something like 6 or 7 students through business school. Karen was the latest graduate, and Bob wanted to give her a start in the business world. Was Bob sleeping with Karen? No clear answer was given, but Bob's wife divorced him shortly after he was fired from the company. Make of that what you will. What happened to Karen? Apparently, she got a job as middle management in a financial services company. Hopefully, she can still build a life for herself and had learned some important lessons. What happened to Bob? Last heard he was a regional director for a large hotel chain. Hopefully, he also lands on his feet. Everyone deserves a chance to make a life for themselves. Some questioned why the board was there for this meeting. I honestly don't know, and neither did the board member I spoke with. It was one of their regularly scheduled meetings, and Bob added things to the agenda. Some questioned my use of non-competes, saying it's not nice. It's a normal reality in the business world. The oddity is that my old company did not have one. The non-compete I have my employees sign is not overly burdensome. It protects our intellectual property and professional contacts. It does not in any way restrict the employee's ability to work in the field. That said, Jim and I have both agreed that if an employee leaves us on good terms and reasonably asks to be released from the non-compete, we would oblige. Some inquired if we are still hiring. Unfortunately, we are not. We are taking a pause from expansion right now, as Jim's wife is dealing with cancer. I don't want Jim to worry about the office while taking care of his wife, so we have decided to maintain our size, which I can do with minimal input from Jim, until his wife is in remission and he has a chance to rest and return his attention more fully to our company. Jim and I treat each other like family. So this is a natural step for us. Thank you all so much for your interest and the great feedback and discussion in the comments. Edit. Replaced all the initials with names because a number of people commented the initials made it difficult to follow. The next story from Kilted Turtle. Sort the parking out? Okay, let me know if this works for you, company with V in their name. A post earlier this week of a truck blocking cars in an apartment complex reminded me of this story. Very long, and no, you can't post this on your website to suck in advertising clicks. Back in the heyday of a fiber company with the letter V in their name, they were jamming fiber into the ground as fast as they could. They came to our townhouse village. We got notice that they would be starting the next Monday, and that they would be going along the inside edge of the sidewalks to set primary fibers, and if we wanted it to come to the house to paste this orange sign on our front doors. Okay, I was happy with the current provider, so no orange for me. Parking is tight, with spaces for residents, marked, and some for visitors, marked. I was surprised to come home on Friday to see a ditch witch, cable digging or insertion machine across the 3 spaces my family normally used. I said to the workmen that they were in my spaces, and they were across them. Why not move to the visitor spot next spot over, and rather than being across them, just put the machine in the spot like it was a car. That way it would take 1 spot, not 3. Digger guy goes, I already said it there, I have other work, you can sort out the parking, and drove off. Okay, fine. So I park my car as close as I can get to the machine, using the visitor spot. When next car arrives, we place it as close to the machine in the space on the other side. Next car goes across the 3 spaces parallel to the machine. This blocks it in on 3 sides, can't get out the 4th since there are the concrete bumpers. Plus, lack of wiggle room. Others make alternate plans to get to work. I stay home to watch the action. Digger guy shows up, sees that he's blocked in and is very sad. Stomps around the digger, around the cars, around the digger, another pass around the cars. They go to the first townhouse. No answer. Second, third, fourth, all at work. Gets to me. Those cars. Yep, parked in my spot. You need to move them. Nope, busy with other work. And I close the door. Bang, bang, bang. You can't block me in. You can't park there. I can park there and look at them. I already did. You said for me to sort my parking out on Friday, and I did. I'm going to call the police. Go for it. And I close the door. About an hour passed. Knock at the door. I'm the site engineer for a company with V in their name. Are those cars yours? Yep. You need to move them. No, when your work drone dropped the machine off, I suggested rather than take up 3 spaces, they take up 1. They said I should sort my own parking out. Now, I did, and I have other work to do. Close the door. More knocking that I ignored. By now, there is a crowd of work people milling around. Another hour passes, new knocking. I'm the senior project engineer for a company with V in their name. Are those cars yours? Yep. You need to move them. No, when your work drone dropped the machine off, I suggested rather than take up 3 spaces, they take up 1. They said I should sort my own parking out. I did, and I have other work to do. We'll call the police. You do that. Close the door. While finishing lunch, knock at the door. This is the police. Open up and ask how I can help. Get told by Office OB to move my car or they would be towed. I pointed to the private property sign and said, this is a private parking lot. You don't have jurisdiction. In fact, when we have complained about issues, your chief has said you don't have jurisdiction. So you can't call the tow. You need to deal with the homeowners association. Some splutter by Officer Obi, but acknowledge they don't have jurisdiction to call a tow and left. Late afternoon knock at the door. Hey Kilted, this is member of the HOA. I open up, we go out, and I explain the situation. Sorry, no 8x10 color glossies with circles and paragraphs on the back. To them. HOA yells at people from company that has V in their name. Company people look sad. HOA member asks, how can we solve this? I go, well, illegal parking is a $100 fine. They are across 3 spaces, so that would be $300 fine. They pay that we can call it a day. Winking at HOA member. That works. I fine you $300 per day company with V in their name. Senior engineer with a company with V in their name goes, okay, we will pay it. Move the cars. I go, they look like they will pull a runner on you. I'd get payment first. Good idea. You can pay me the fine since I'm the HOA. I can't get you a check today. When you get the check, you can start. Otherwise, there is a bank down the street. Cash will work. Senior engineer slinks away. HOA member and I chat outside while worker drones mill around. Senior engineer returns, hands cash to the HOA member, and goes, "Okay, now move your cars." I comply, putting cars in other slots. When I come back from moving the last car, I see the digger parked in the visitor spot, correctly like a car. What's with that HOA member? Well, they decided that they had wasted the entire day and would start again tomorrow. They came and did the wires the next 3 days. Each day the digger was returned to its spot. Oddly, I never saw the guy that wanted me to sort my own parking out again. TLDR, company with V in their name. Parks across multiple spots after being told not to. After a day of messing around, gets fined and has lost days' worth of labor. Absolutely flawless malicious compliance. OP followed their exact instruction, sort out your own parking, and turned it into a masterclass of calm defiance. It wasted their entire workday, cost them $300, and ensured it never happened again. Perfectly executed poetic justice.